The stars over Caltrin Prime burned cold the morning he died. No music played, no war horn sounded. There was only static, rolling in waves across the galaxy, until it cut to silence. Then the feed opened. 1,000,000 colonies tuned in, unsure what they were watching, until the frame centered on a single man. Ambassador Elias Wren, Earth's first permanent diplomatic envoy to the Galactic Apex Council. He stood tall under the vaulted blue light of the Council Dome on Velkanar 4, flanked by species who had ruled the void long before humans crawled out of gravity wells. His suit was clean, his spine straight, but his hands as they were still. Too still. That's when the whisper started. An old Delcar saying, "The Council does not speak, it eliminates." And when Elias raised his hand to request the floor, he was not given it. Instead, the High Chancellor of the Council, Voran Locke, raised his own scaled arm and gave a single word in his native tongue, raw and jagged. A single blast followed. Light lanced from the security tier. Elias dropped. His body crumpled on the obsidian floor. Not even a scream, just the dull thud of flesh and bone echoing in the perfect acoustics of the hall. The camera didn't cut, it lingered. A second too long. A choice. And Earth saw it, all of it. The broadcast spread like fire across human systems, from Terra to the moons of Endrix 5. Mining rigs shut down mid-cycle. Civilian networks crashed from replays. On the civilian freighter Lisanne's Reach, a 6-year-old girl watching beside her father whispered, "Why won't anyone help him?" The father had no answer. Inside Lunar Command, in a room shielded from every signal but truth, General Emmerich. Shaw watched the same moment. He didn't blink, he didn't flinch, but his jaw clenched with such force the veins in his neck rose like cables. Behind him, silence weighed like gravity. The feed cut. Still, Shaw didn't speak. He just turned to a lower officer in blue tactical riggings and said calmly, "Call Geneva. Activate Protocol Vindicator." The young officer swallowed. "That's a Class 1 retaliatory action, sir. There's no war declaration." "There is now," Shaw said. "They just didn't send it in writing." The Earth Security Council assembled within the hour. Half of them looked pale. The rest looked like gods preparing to judge a planet. On the central display, Ambassador Wren's body flickered on loop, caught in mid-collapse, frozen in history. "This wasn't a mistake," said Admiral Lynn Soraya, her voice sharp and cracking like winter glass. "He was unarmed." "He wasn't." Haven finished speaking. "They shot him during a broadcast," muttered Director Vega of Human Colonial Affairs. "That's not murder. That's a message." "They forgot," Shaw said, finally looking up. "They forgot what we are." The room went still. A whisper from the shadows came from an older man, his voice low. A young species, loud, disorganized, prone to revenge. Shaw looked directly at him. "No, we're patient. We're surgical. And we never forget who kills our diplomats." The vote wasn't called. It didn't need to be. Across 1,000 black sites and sleeper arrays, seeded decades before in Council-aligned systems, orders moved. Quiet, clean, perfect. They didn't aim for blood. They aimed for control. In orbit around Hector 9, 5 cargo ships vanished without a trace, each of them Council logistics carriers. On Viral Station, every communications beacon failed within seconds. On Revik Moon, the atmosphere processing grid corrupted, ejecting falsified readings that grounded all outbound craft. No humans seen, no shots fired. Just silence, so heavy. It terrified the stars. Back on Earth, a teenage boy named Aiden replayed the image of Elias Wren falling, 10 times, maybe 20. He wasn't political. He didn't care for council law. But when his mother asked why his fists were clenched, he said quietly, "Because they thought we wouldn't do anything." His mother just nodded. And on the blackened edges of the solar frontier, Earth's first true war fleet moved into formation. Not to conquer, not to negotiate, to remind the galaxy what it meant to bury a human diplomat in front of billions and expect silence in return. The stars over Velkanar 4 didn't dim. They should have. As the council chamber was scrubbed clean of Elias Wren's blood, polished like it had never happened. The world spun on, the sky above it serene. News feeds from council channels painted the act as a containment measure, calling Wren a destabilizing element, dangerous rogue, a threat to interstellar unity. They framed his execution as an unfortunate but necessary act of galactic law enforcement. They didn't realize the cameras weren't the only things recording. 3 hours after Wren's death, Earth responded. Not with a fleet, not with a weapon, but with a shutdown. Across the Eastern Trade Corridor, entire jump lanes went dark. Navigation AIs crashed mid-cycle. Beacons that had functioned without error for decades flickered and blinked out, replaced by 2 words in crimson glyphs. Remember Elias. The council scrambled. In Velkanar's security towers, fingers jabbed at control panels. In back door, meetings across the Vraxi Empire. Officials whispered for backup plans. But Earth didn't say a word. No diplomat, no ambassador, no fleet command hailed for answers. They didn't need to. Their silence was louder than any war horn. General Emmerich Shaw stood in the data command vault of Lunar Base, eyes narrowed. As dozens of holodisplays spiraled around him. Civilian reports, system collapse warnings, council distress signals, panicked AI pings from neutral colonies. It was all there. And he barely glanced at any of them. Phase 1 complete, said Lieutenant Mira Caswell, voice low. Trade lanes are locked, 25 beacon hubs silenced, and all council-aligned military relays are showing ghost telemetry. They don't even know where their fleets are. Shaw nodded once. Good. Start Phase 2. Caswell hesitated. Sir, Phase 2 isn't an escalation. It's exposure. Exactly, Shaw said. We don't fire a single shot until every species watching knows who started this. On a private diplomatic relay in the Wissal Drift, a secured broadcast, origin unknown, pierced the veil. It wasn't flashy, just a simple video. The council chamber, Elias Wren, the moment they executed him. Unedited, no subtitles, no spin. Just truth, and beneath it a single line of text. He spoke of peace, they answered with death. That was it. Within 12 hours, it had been translated into 312 languages. On a moon called Drax Theta, a forgotten mining colony lit flares over its domes in Earth's colors. On a Vraxi-controlled habitat ring, graffiti spread like wildfire. We remember Wren. And on neutral relay stations, ships refused to transmit. Council mandates. Earth had turned diplomacy into a mirror, and it was showing the universe its own reflection. But not everyone was ready to see it. In a high chamber above Velkanar's political ring, High Chancellor Voran Locke paced. His claws scraped softly on the glassy floor as aides flitted in and out with conflicting updates. Distress signals, collapsing trade data. Ghost tech, one whispered. They're using old code, another murmured. Embedded decades ago. They planned this. Locke's eyes narrowed. No, he growled. Humans aren't that patient. But deep down he knew. They were. Because humans had always smiled while building walls. They'd bowed while placing knives in the ground. They'd played by rules until the rules became the noose, and now, without warning, they'd gone silent. The kind of silence that always came before a storm. Locke turned to his aide. Send word to the Ectune, tell them to prep for defense, and bring me the Thrinari war envoy. The aide blinked nervously. But we're not at war. Locke bared his fangs in a humorless grin. We just started. Sir, back on Earth, Shaw stood in a shadowed chamber beneath Geneva. The real war room. The one not even most presidents knew existed. Around him, intelligence officers flicked through intercepted transmissions, public reactions, and political fallout. Council claims Wren carried unauthorized quantum tech, said one analyst. No proof, replied another, and too late. No one believes them anymore. Civilian species support is increasing by 34%. Even some of the core world sympathizers are hesitating. Shaw gave a tight nod. Begin the message drop, he said. Let the galaxy see what they planned. Across systems, data nodes lit up with hidden files, messages sent before Wren's death, memorandums confirming intent. To silence him. Payment logs from Vraxi banks to council enforcers. And then the final straw. A pre-written obituary for Elias Wren, time-stamped 14 minutes before he ever stepped into the chamber. By the end of the day, half the galaxy wasn't sure who. They feared more, the Council, or the humans who didn't even need to fire a shot to break it. 3 days after Elias Wren's execution, Velkanar's orbit began to bleed ships, human vessels, not bearing banners, not issuing warnings, just arriving. Silent, intentional. Their hulls were matte black, their signals encrypted, and their weapons systems armed. From the high dome of Velkanar's capital ring, Chancellor Locke watched through a panoramic feed, his slitted eyes twitching every time another cruiser broke fold space. "They're posturing," grunted Lord Strategos Jintal of the Thrinari, arms crossed over his angular armor. "Humans speak in drama. They want the story to make them look righteous before they strike." Locke turned slowly, voice low. "You think they're waiting for permission?" "I think," Jintal said, "they're writing their verdict." Inside the human flagship, UEE's Oathkeeper, General Shaw stood on the command tier, eyes fixed on the surface below. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Around him, holograms bloomed and spun, dozens of tactical windows feeding data from silent operations unfolding across 7 systems. Lieutenant Mira Caswell approached from the flank, her face pale. "General, the leak hit TAR 6 an hour ago. All the proof, the council transcripts, the encrypted orders, the broadcast of Wren's final words." "Public?" Shaw asked, voice steady. "Every channel. Even species that banned Terran broadcasts are rebroadcasting. Fed through civilian streams. We estimate 60 million views in the last 90 minutes. Shaw didn't nod. He just closed his eyes for one slow breath. "And the response?" Caswell licked her lips. 3 trade federations froze council contracts. 2 core colonies declared neutrality. And she hesitated. Shaw turned to her fully. "And?" Velkanar's own outer defense grid stopped responding to council commands. "Our systems confirm they were disabled from within." That got a flicker of a reaction. Just a small one. The corner of his mouth curved downward. "Send a message," Shaw said. "No fleet engagement. No orbital strikes. We don't start the fire. We just keep pulling the strings holding their mask up." Velkanar's southern hemisphere, chaos had begun to whisper. Shuttle terminals halted all flights due to technical errors. Council food hubs suffered cascading outages from data corruption. Security drones flew in looping patterns, receiving faulty pings from redirected satellite feeds. On paper, no enemy had landed, but on the streets of the capital, everyone felt invaded. Whispers rose in alleys, in temples, in data cafes. The humans have come not to fight, not to conquer, to unravel. In the hidden halls beneath Lunar Base, Earth's Strategic Command processed the next wave of data. One screen after another showed patterns, Council enforcers routing bribes, Council planets skimming human resources under diplomatic taxes, and covert missions authorized against Earth-allied systems, all buried in bureaucratic shadows. "They murdered our diplomat," Director Vega said, her tone sharp, "to stop the world from seeing this." Shaw stood silent. Then he spoke, calm. "Clipped absolute. They gave us a martyr," he said. "We'll give them memory." A new message appeared across every major communication hub that night. Simple, undeniable. "We do not seek war. We do not need permission. We do not forget who kills our voice. This is not revenge. This is correction." Earth Strategic Assembly. And across Council space, systems responded. Neutral planets cut comms with the apex authority. Trade hubs refused to load Council-marked goods, and in one chilling moment, a Serenian diplomat from a species known for neutrality publicly declared, "If you kill a human for speaking, you kill every species with hope left in its bones." In orbit above Velkanar, 112 human ships now held position. No plasma fired. No kinetic strikes, just the soft humming tension of systems fully powered, aimed directly at the capital. High Chancellor Locke stood in the emergency council chamber, sweating under his scale plates. His voice wavered. "Summon their envoy." Jintal arched a brow. You think they'll talk? Locke's hands shook. No, but maybe they'll let us explain before they burn the sky. They didn't send an ambassador, they sent a recording. It was Ren, his final rehearsal, recorded hours before his death. He stood in a small chamber, no fanfare, just words. We do not ask for privilege, we ask for parity. We do not come with force, we come with endurance. If the Council cannot see humanity as equal, then we will show it what equality looks like when the silenced are heard. It ended with his eyes on the camera, quiet, calm. And for a second, Locke's heart skipped. He saw it clearly now. They hadn't killed a man. They'd given Earth permission, and Earth was answering, without screaming, without roaring, with silence, and precision sharp enough to cut empires down to bone. The fourth night after Elias Wren's death, Velkanar's capital dome turned black, not from flame, not from smoke, but from silence. The great commoray atop the council spire, the neural hub that controlled all diplomatic and civilian relays, sputtered out without warning. Across the galaxy, embassy channels blinked red. Messages hung frozen, in transit. Real-time monitoring from apex planets collapsed into static, and somewhere far beyond any system the Council could reach, a Terran operative simply nodded and whispered, Phase 3, complete. In Lunar Base, General Shaw stood in front of the operations holomap. Watching a galaxy slowly fracture like glass under heat, he didn't smile. He didn't gloat. This wasn't victory, this was necessary. Lieutenant Caswell approached, eyes flicking through a datapad with cold precision. 17 more independent colonies are refusing to comply with Council economic law, she said. The Serenian and Adrek alliances have declared a diplomatic pause and issued a joint statement. Humanity has proven what the Council has denied. Truth without compliance is rebellion. Shaw gave a slow nod. And Velkanar? She looked up. Shut tight. No comms, no defense activation. Council security forces pulled back into their inner compound. They've locked themselves inside their own palace. Good, Shaw said. That's where they'll hear it. Caswell hesitated. Sir, the civilian feeds across Earth and its colonies. They're hungry, they're afraid, some are calling for retribution. They'll get it, Shaw said flatly. Not in fire, in undeniable evidence. On Velkanar, High Chancellor Locke was sweating in his throne. The Great Hall felt colder than usual, though the climate regulators hummed steadily. His aides surrounded him with updated readings. Systems offline, defense grids unresponsive, navigation pings corrupted by phantom data. Loops Tal stood by the window, arms behind his back, calm as stone. They're bleeding us, Tal said. One node at a time, Locke growled. Then why haven't they struck? If they want vengeance, why wait? Tal turned, eyes unreadable. Because they already won. They don't want surrender. He paused. They want submission. Locke nearly roared at that. Then give me the damn projection screen. If they want us to listen, then let's hear it. The chamber lights dimmed. A projection appeared, cast against the curved wall like a god delivering a sermon. The screen was black. Then white text appeared. Truth, Ren dossier Inzo 1, unauthorized execution and coordinated censorship. And then, the world watched. Private feed, never meant to leave internal channels, flickered to life. Footage of Chancellor Locke 37 minutes before the council session, rehearsing with aides. Make sure the charge reads subversion, it sounds worse. Prepare the Delcar to feign concern, and cut his mic if he mentions the outer colonies. Locke froze in his seat as the room gasped. Another file played. A transcript. Ectune security. Forces discussing payouts. If it goes smooth, the human never finishes his sentence. We need a clean visual. Then another, and another. One by one, the Empire's own rot was revealed. Its bribes, its targeted sabotages, its strategic suffocation of Earth's expansion under the banner of stability. Across systems, the stream could not be stopped. Even jamming systems failed. The message had already spread. In the Shaltari belt, miners threw down their apex tools and painted Earth's triple arc across their domes. In the refugee stations near the Trelan species once too afraid to speak, whispered one word: justice. Inside the Oathkeeper, Admiral Nolan Vex stood beside General Shaw as new telemetry rolled in. "Council battle groups are moving," Vex said. "But not toward us." Shaw raised an eyebrow. "They're scattering," Vex continued. "Withdrawals, quiet ones. One of the Ectune carriers disabled its own engines and surrendered to a neutral port. They know they're bleeding. They just don't know what to stop first." Shaw studied the maps. "Show the dossier again. Let them choke on it." "Same targets?" Caswell asked. Shaw nodded. "Velkanar first, then the 5 core worlds. We don't strike until they're out of lies." "Understood." At the edge of Velkanar's lower district, crowds began to gather. No weapons, no banners, just eyes locked to projection walls now hijacked by Earth's transmission. Ren's face, calm, steady, alive, played again. Not his death, but his speech rehearsal. His final words never delivered. His hope made real through digital echo. A small Vexari child turned to her father and asked, "Why did they kill him?" The father didn't answer, but someone near them did. An older woman, scarred and scaled, wearing the patch of a mining slave caste long erased from the council record. She whispered, "Because he made them look small." At 0300 local time, Earth sent a final message. Not a threat. A choice. Surrender. Your authority. Disband your council, or we pull the mask off entirely. You killed peace, now face truth. The sky above Velkanar didn't explode. It waited, as if the galaxy itself was asking, what happens now? There are moments in history that don't need flags, anthems, or fire. Sometimes, the most permanent changes happen in stillness, in the breath between fear and collapse. Velkanar was holding that breath. The council dome remained intact, but the foundation had already split. Behind those cold walls, the last true elite of the Galactic Order were hiding, staring at terminals that no longer obeyed, issuing commands no one answered, waiting for help that would never come. High Chancellor Voran Locke paced like a caged animal, his robes torn, his voice hoarse from rage and silence. "Why haven't they attacked?" he snarled. "Why hasn't Earth launched the fleet?" No one replied. They knew the truth. Because Earth already had. Not through missiles, not through orbital strikes, but through reality. They'd turned every lie into a confession, every bribe into a headline, every act of repression into evidence, and now even the systems loyal to the Council were blinking, uncertain whether to follow their masters or flee before the storm. On the bridge of the UEE's Oathkeeper, General Shaw stood in a sea of motionless tacticians. Every officer, every screen, every ship was synced in silence, watching Velkanar, waiting. Behind Shaw, Lieutenant Caswell approached. Her voice was quiet. "Sir, new feed from TAR 6, another message. From the Council." "No," she said, "from the Varelian refugee flotilla." Shaw turned. "Play it." The screen shifted. A simple image appeared. An older Varelian man, gilled and copper-skinned, seated in a steel chair on a cracked transport deck. No uniform, no weapons, just age and memory behind his eyes. "I watched them execute Elias Wren," the man said. "And I remembered the day they burned our libraries, said our history was non-compliant. Now Earth sends no flames, no conquest. They send our truth back to us. And for the first time in my life, I believe the humans may actually be the ones who learned how to listen." Caswell stepped back. Shaw gave a single nod. "Add it to the dossier, broadcast it, full channels." "Yes, sir." Meanwhile, inside the shattered diplomatic core of Velkanar, cracks turned to floods. Whole departments stopped responding to the Chancellor's authority. Defense ministerials deleted their access codes and fled. Envoys that had once signed decrees with arrogance now vanished into neutral space, seeking asylum under human protection. In the back corridors of the Council Tower, someone painted 3 crude arcs and a star on the wall. The old human symbol, not a flag, a promise. Earth didn't send ultimatums. They sent documents, recordings, contracts, transcripts of conversations that should never have been heard. High Chancellor Locke's own voice, laughing about Earth's political infancy, mocking their insistence on law and diplomacy. It played across neutral relay satellites like poetry. He couldn't deny it. No one could. And that made it worse than war. In Lunar Command, back on Earth, the Security Council met with General Shaw via secure relay. The room was dimmed. No lights but the blue-white glow of cascading data flowing across every wall. "So you've destabilized the Council's entire infrastructure," said Director Vega. "Their financial grid's crashing. Trade has slowed to a crawl. They're hemorrhaging allies. You've done in 5 days what 4 wars failed to accomplish." Shaw didn't nod. He didn't thank her. He just asked, "Has Velkanar answered the terms?" Silence. "No response," she admitted. "They're trying to wait us out." "They won't," Shaw said, "because waiting is a game we perfected while they weren't watching." He turned toward Admiral Vex. "Have the tribunal platform arrived?" Vex checked his console. "Set for orbital drop in 8 hours. All observers are in position. Velkanar will see it form in their sky like a gavel falling from heaven." On Velkanar's surface, panic had begun to whisper into the streets. The elite hoarded shuttles. The security officers had no orders, and the skies were filled with the unblinking outline of Earth's judgment. And then, the first support beam of the orbital tribunal platform cut through the clouds. A single cylinder descending slowly, a calm descent. No weapons, just presence. The civilians below stared upward, watching their gods become ghosts. By dawn, the tribunal ring had formed, floating just above the apex of Velkanar's spires. No anthem, no fanfare, just the truth, orbiting like judgment held in suspension, and at its center was an empty chair, facing the planet below, reserved not for a warrior, not for a conqueror, but for the ghost of Elias Wren. They didn't build it to rule. They built it so the next lie would have no room to grow. And when the message played, Elias's last recorded words, the galaxy held its breath. If truth is rebellion, then let the silenced become revolution. That day, no ships moved, no missiles fired, but an empire finally fell, crushed, by the one weapon it never learned to fear, memory. The final part began not with a sound, but with a choice. High Chancellor Voren Locke stood in the hollow core of what used to be the council chamber. The ceiling above him, where once 100 banners had hung, was empty now, torn down by his own staff, or stolen, or simply abandoned. No more guards, no more diplomats, no more illusion. Just Locke, Jintal of the Thrinari, and a silence so absolute it felt like the universe had paused to watch them fall. Above them, Earth's tribunal ring hovered like a divine verdict written in steel and gravity. From every surface hub on Velkanar, it was visible, glinting with mirrored panels broadcasting one unchanging symbol, the triple arc and star. No threats, no countdown, just one line beneath the seal: your voice is no longer louder than your actions. On the bridge of the Oathkeeper, General Shaw stood in full-dress uniform, not for war, but for witnessing. The central display filled with feeds from across council space. Outer colonies, abandoned embassies, silenced trade hubs. Every line of power they'd held had been unplugged. "Transmission request," said Lieutenant Caswell, "from Locke." Shaw didn't look up. "Accept." No reply yet. The feed opened. Locke appeared gaunt, stripped of regalia, hunched like a man who had never prepared for the possibility of being wrong. He didn't rage, he didn't beg. He simply asked, "What is the price?" Shaw let the silence stretch. Then he spoke with all the cold precision of a verdict. "You already paid it, with blood, with lies, with the death of a man who asked to speak." Locke said nothing, so Shaw did. "You will dissolve the council, not in secret, publicly. You will name the Vraxi, Ektun, and Thrinari conspirators. You will free every system silenced under council law, and you will do it from the same podium where you murdered Elias Wren." Locke's lips parted. Shaw leaned forward. "And if you don't, we won't send ships. We'll send your words, your contracts, your voice, until every race you ruled sees you the way Earth already does, a coward in a crown." The transmission ended. Locke slumped. The feed didn't freeze, it didn't cut. Earth let it linger, so the galaxy could see what shame really looked like. Within 24 hours, the council dome reopened, not for debate, for admission. Locke stood before the shattered podium, now rebuilt from Earth's tribunal plans, and read from a prepared statement. He acknowledged the assassination of Elias Wren. He confessed to internal conspiracies. He named names, signed resignations, and finally he stepped back from the microphone and said, voice shaking, "We cede authority. The Council is no longer sovereign. We leave our fate to those we once silenced. And we ask, not for forgiveness, but for the chance to be quiet and learn." The galaxy didn't erupt into celebration. It simply exhaled. Across 100 colonies, silence broke not with cheers, but with truth spoken aloud for the first time in generations. Species erased from historical archives began rebuilding libraries. Planets written off as unstable held their own elections. Ships once bound by Council tariffs painted new flags, some with Earth's triple arc, some with none at all. Earth didn't claim them. It just gave them their voice back. In Lunar Base, General Shaw stood before the Earth Assembly. His uniform was still crisp, but his shoulders carried a new weight, the weight of justice delivered without invasion. Chancellor Arston stood. "You never fired a shot," he said quietly. "You shattered a regime with nothing but exposure." Shaw didn't smile. "Truth is heavier than firepower, Chancellor. It just takes longer to detonate." "Do we take their place now?" Riston asked. "Become the new center?" Shaw looked out the window toward the stars. "No," he said. "We were never fighting for power." He turned to face the chamber. "We were fighting for the right to speak, and not be murdered for it." Later that year, on a floating archive ring near neutral space, a memorial was constructed, not to the war. There had been no war. It was dedicated to Elias Wren, a simple sculpture, him standing as he had before the Council, eyes forward, one hand raised not in anger but in appeal. The plaque beneath read, "He didn't ask for revenge, he asked for presence," and the galaxy finally listened. In the years that followed, Earth didn't conquer, it guided, quietly, carefully, without banners, without claims, because those who knew what silence cost never let it return. And when the next generation of humans looked up at the stars, they didn't see empires. They saw balance, born from the day the galaxy killed a diplomat, and Earth spoke back with annihilation, not of worlds but of lies.